your score? That violin part? The one that's falling apart? Okay. I'll bring it. So
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Closing the door. And we're starting our masterclass, but before masterclass, please can you check your mobiles? Switch off all your mobiles. If you have two, switch two. Okay. Look, tonight, or this evening, yes, we plan to have masterclass with Chaim Taut, but unfortunately, he's not well, and he will do his masterclass. Hopefully, yes, we never cancel things in Keshet Eilon. Okay, but he will do his masterclass on Sunday at 5:30. So please stay here, don't go home, because it's really important to see this masterclass. But it was so kind that with a short notice, our professor agreed to take stage instead of Chaim Taub, and this very special professor. This professor in 2000 was a student here in Keshet Eilon, and she got masterclass with Chaim Taub. We have this wonderful photograph in this place. This was a chicken coop originally, and then it was club, sandwich club, and I remember very well this masterclass. She played Hachatrian Concerto for Chaim Taub, and it's so symbolic that this student now, former student of Keshet Eilon, coming back as a professor, as established artist, professor, really outstanding violinist who making international career in Europe, in the United States. She will start teaching in Peabody Institute from September. So please welcome Judith Ingolfsson.
And I'm sorry I had to stop you. I would have loved to hear more. I'll put this here just so that in case we want to take some reference, we can take a look. Yeah. So, of course, you know this piece extremely well. Have you played it with the orchestra yet? No. Okay. You will soon, I'm sure. So the question I always like to ask in the beginning is, can you tell me about the first theme and how you perceive it? When is it first heard, and by what instruments? Do you remember?
It starts with the lift at the introduction.
Right. So there's an orchestra exposition, and I think that this orchestra exposition is the key to this movement. It has everything in it that we need to be able to work through the rest of the solo part. And I always wish we could actually continue the classical tradition and play it with the orchestra, because it's such a phenomenal piece of music, this exposition, the orchestra exposition. And so, do you remember which instruments play it?
The beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to me that is important because it's lower strings, so it's cellos and violas, and the woodwinds are bassoons. So it's presented, this is presented in a very low register. And then when you get to play it, it's in this incredibly high register. So it transforms the theme into a different character, really, from what the audience hears right in the beginning when this theme is presented. And so I think it's just incredibly important that you understand that, and that all the material we are about to work on stems from material that has already been presented once in its entirety. Yeah? So we've got, and one of the most important materials is this. Yeah, this is an extremely important motive that comes back, that we will deal with momentarily. But I think that perhaps we can work on structuring the solo parts in such a way that that we can be drawn to that repetition of the material and what the solo part adds to it. Yeah, so that we don't just listen to what essentially is ornamentation and lose track of the thematic material. Yeah. So when you play the opening, when you play this. Your entry. What strikes you as being very unusual? Do you find it unusual in some way?
The rhythm?
Yes. And what about the rhythm? What is interesting?
So quintuplets.
Right. So he writes a right, and so he is in this entire movement. This is a rhythmical motive that reoccurs all the time. And if you look at the theme, I think that it's even in the subject. I think that he groups the notes. Those are 5 notes. And then he goes up. And they come. So if you phrase with 5 notes at a time, you come down, you come up, and you come back down. Then you have a very natural presentation of the theme. Does that make sense? Would you like to try it? And then we'll go back to the beginning of your... Great. And now what I'd love to encourage you to do is linger a little bit on the last note of each group of 5. I'll try to show you what I mean. You can wait before you continue. Yep. Right. So you can think about it. Also listen to the subdivision in the piano. You're sometimes a tiny bit early after the half note. Yeah, so you can fill those beats to feel the shape so that you can be encouraged to change direction every time at the end of those 5 notes. So then when we go back to the solo entrance, I'd love you to show us right away 2 things. Read the first note, and then the groups of 5. And then this B flat. But that note has an accent, and I think that it comes a little bit from what's going to come up later with this passage. There's the right. There's the same dissonance. Yeah. So this is so I show you. This half step, this dissonance. Yeah. This is exactly the same here. So then it's that kind of dissonance, yeah. And these pillars. So show me the B flat octave, okay. Great. Now, can we get even more power on the first note? And the way we get it is when we use our hand like a spring, yeah. So you're dropping the bow onto the string beautifully. Now let's see if you can get the bow to almost bounce in your hand. So it has. You do that by. You can do it once without pulling. You put the bow on the string and let go of your thumb so you feel the spring. Do you want to try? Just without pulling. And then, so you drop quite forcefully and then let the thumb go. Yeah, exactly. No, it shouldn't. So you just drop it vertically and let go of your thumb. If you're scared, just bring it even closer to the frog. Yeah. Right. So what we want is that as much as possible for the bow to vibrate in our hands and for our fingertips to be absolutely in touch with the vibrations of the stick. And this is the beginning of the piece, and we're excited, and and so. The best thing we can do is let go. If you hold on tight, it's going to get aggressive and tight, yeah? And if you just imagine the bow slipping in your hand, just imagine it. It will soften up the sound and make it more powerful, and we'll just project. favorite ones. Not dropping here. You drop there. I would drop here, and from there grow. So don't drop here. Drop one measure later, so that you finish this thought. Yeah. And can I get a bit more of a gypsy character, like Hungarian jazz? By the way, we've got the B flat again with the syncopation before. And then come back. Yeah. Well, one more time. And here, re-articulate the E. Re-articulate the E. And stay. Yeah. You can totally stay on that. And that note, I think, is very important. You saved it. Great. The ensemble problem, yeah? I was absolutely highest respect for that. Bravo. But the way to possibly avoid this, and it's a dangerous place, is to show, again, the beginning of the group of 5 there. Yeah? Because it gives the cue for where you are. Because we play this quite free. Yeah? And then I think you'll have an even better chance. Yeah? And stay on the high A longer. Yeah? Try from here. Try to make this, since it's a piano. Now we're challenged with the piano in the Brahms Violin Concerto. Yeah, what do we do? We have to be heard, and so we have to change the character. Yeah, and we should try to change it quite dramatically. So how about, I like to think they're kind of like pitter-pattered raindrops, like a. Such a different articulation from what's going on in the orchestra that I don't think you will get buried. I haven't gotten buried yet. Yeah. So can you try that and see if and just enjoy the hemiola and the intervals. You don't have to play each group of 8 notes the same way from the timing. You're playing them very beautifully, but very much the same. Yeah, but you can change the timing slightly. It's beautiful, only I want more. And what I want more of is you to show us the extremely high register that you're in comparison to the orchestra. And so can you show us a bit more air in the sound? Like, that's one of my favorite parts of this introduction, is that moment you meet the cellos. Yeah? Yeah. And there's the theme, by the way. Yeah, so, and then here also bring out the main notes. Yeah, so play it, don't think of it as something that's non-melodic material, a passage work. It's actually melodic material, so try playing it melodically, just right there. More air. So did you have fun listening to the theme and the cellos? That's really important. And then here, then all of those half-step dissonances, enjoy them, bring them to life, yeah? Because they are all part of the construction of this movement, yeah? And the sooner you start showing us what you enjoy about it, the sooner we get sucked into this incredible piece of music. Yeah? So try from here. And show us the hemiolas and everything. More dissonances. Can you show us that? Don't play through it, but show us these dissonances. This one, yeah? And more. Yes. Important, and I think you can do more of it. Yeah. So. Yeah, and then you can move forward again, if you like. Yeah. Just yeah. It just from here for now is fine. Yeah. So we'll finish with this thought, okay? So now we have this material. Yeah, and this is the material that's also developed You know that, right? And so this is obviously a very important theme for him. And so when we play these chords, I think we need to play them around these pillars, this material in the orchestra. We don't need the orchestra to follow us here. Yeah? And so I think we can be imaginative, and again, there's a lot of energy we can create to kind of show where we're headed by doing something that I like to call the energy between the notes, and you can show that with the speed with which you move between. So you pull the chord quite slowly in order to create the energy. You retake really quickly. Can you just try? So you would pull slow and then retake quick. Yeah, and then keep pulling. Yeah, and I think we can play to the end of the second measure more. So and then this dissonance. Yeah, yeah. So we want to play into that moment. Yeah, you're playing it too nicely. Yeah, and then I don't know why the dissonance happens. Yeah, so try one more time. And these we should try to use more bow. Yeah. So you match the intensity of the orchestra. Wait. Yeah, you're coming too soon. I want to hear the, so these rests. Wait a tiny bit longer. Yeah? We try, and so you come a slight bit late. One, da da dee, and then you do the rubato. You move forward to make up for the time you lost. So one, you go there. One. So I'm not playing perfectly rhythmically. I'm kind of coming slightly late, and I'm making up for that by going up towards the note that has an accent. Yeah? One, forward. Wait. This one is the most important. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and then he keeps going. Then he does the same thing and you play. Yeah? And for me, again, this can be much wilder. And how do we make that wild? By playing it not absolutely steadily, yeah? But to bring out the notes. Yeah, you don't have to play them all exactly the same length. Yeah? And so if it's got that improvisatory quality, then you've got that element of Hungarian rhapsody that's very much built into this, the inspiration of Joachim, and just take it for the ride there. And behind all of that, we've got this fiddle music essentially, and behind it we have this German, these pillars. Yeah, and that's how we can build this movement up all the way to this moment where you. Yeah, where he takes these half-step motive to extremes by displacing them several octaves apart, and again having that same material in the orchestra. Yeah, and so yeah, this is just a small. I was just telling her backstage that it usually takes me about 3 hours to get through this movement with a student, so it's a small taste of what I would do. Yeah, bravo. and I'm sorry to stop you as well. Great, so I'm curious to see something. This is a Rahmedov edition. But what is it? Okay. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Okay. No, it's Rahmedov. Okay. All right, so I actually asked the same thing in this piece that I asked in the Brahms. So how does this piece begin? Do you remember? Not your part, the actual piece. Yeah, and what do they play? at the beginning of the orchestra exposition. I don't want to put this. My point is not to put you on the spot. Really, it's just musically really important. So if you haven't done it, it's okay. But do you remember by any chance? Yeah, can you play it? The first violin part. Good. Very good. Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you. You didn't freeze. Wonderful. Okay. Now I don't have. I have it, but maybe we can just quickly look at it on the. So in the orchestra part, then in the fifth measure, we have this very important forte. Yeah, and it's on the 1. Now, can you tell me when you play your solo part? What's going on when you play? The orchestra plays the same thing. Okay, and then they play a forte. And where is that in your part? At what point is the forte in the orchestra part? Yes, exactly. So. She's doing great. She's doing better than anyone so far I've done this with. So what I need you then to do as the soloist is to show that. Yeah. Because you are superimposed on this material that's happening in the orchestra. And the structure shouldn't be different when you play it. Yeah, very often people play it. Yeah, and then the whole, the orchestra part and the solo part, they don't match. Yeah. Another interesting thing is if you look at the word text, Beanreiter, you will see that the solo part, if you look at it without any markings from any professor, it has hardly any dynamic markings. So if you want to actually see what Mozart wrote, dynamic markings wise, you have to look at the orchestra score. Yeah? And I think that is a very important exercise for everyone who wants to play this piece seriously, to take the orchestra part, to the orchestral score, and to look at that and see how your voice, your solo voice, works with that. Yeah? And not follow blindly the indications of whoever edited this edition, as wonderful as it may be. Yeah, you want to make your own decisions. Yeah. So yesterday we had a wonderful lecture. It's like on the Leopold Mozart book. Yeah, and so there is a mountain of information in that book we can use and apply to this concerto. But I wanted to, before we do any of that, talk about the structure of this solo theme. Then, what is the basis of this theme? What are the main notes? La, do, mi. Yeah, exactly. And we heard it here. Right? So it's like this is a larger version of the same thing. And when do we first hear you play La Do Mi? Yeah. Yeah. So I think that when you come in and play that, play it as if this was, you had never heard it before. I mean, that's how we should play it. We should play it not like, oh, I'm hearing it for the 150th time this week, but I have never heard this, and this is a pure stroke of genius for him to just. Yeah, that he can do so much with those 3 notes. Just to try it. That's it. Yeah, and I think what we should think about. Yeah, how great that is. And then I think you will also not be quite so nervous. Yeah, about the whole thing. So try one more time, and then what we can apply from the Leopold Mozart book, and which was mentioned a little bit yesterday, was the distribution of weight in the measure. So we are in 4, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so the 1 has the most weight. Yeah, and so we can use that to help us phrase. And it doesn't mean that every one has to be beaten down, but it should just be a guideline for our concept of how we structure a phrase. Yeah, and so here we have a dissonance. And we can play the dissonance more. Yeah, and it happens to be on the 1. Okay, so let's start there. Right, and I would suggest that you go all the way to the next downbeat. I wouldn't go la do mi and then play, but then we have to play the dissonance softly. I would go less. Then there. Yeah, and then there's the question about that dissonance. Yeah, and whether we should play it more or less. Most. This editor put a piano there, but please know that Mozart did not put it there. Yeah? So actually the bowing would indicate that Mozart's bowing, would you play? And then again, this forte is in the orchestra part, it's not in the part, but there's a forte there. And so you should play it. Yeah? Where the horns come in. Okay? So I'll leave it up to you if you want to emphasize this dissonance for fun. Yeah? But let's structure it a little bit differently. Don't linger on the E, but you go all the way to the next measure. And then you have a longer line. And if you like, you can do something if you like. You can use your newfound cadenza techniques that she does wonderfully. And there as well, if you like. Okay, now we continue. heavy one very nicely. There are two things you can add, which will make it more effective. One is when you have dotted rhythms. Ti, ra, dum. You can, by the way, what does aperato mean? Do you remember? Allegro aperato.
Oh, it's like Allegro open.
Open. Yeah, so whatever he meant by that, it's definitely very joyful, very energetic. So this dotted rhythm, if you want it to be lively, and then you can elongate a slight bit. It's in that book again. Elongate the dotted note slightly, and shorten the short note slightly. The basic pulse must absolutely remain the same. The ti, ra, di, ra, di. But that way you get a bit of a swing. Yeah, so that helps with that character of openness. There's a yeah, you control that forte even more. And then, so we have the dotted rhythm, let's try that. And then the second quarter, this is a very awkward note. Then I don't think you should sustain it. If you sustain, then it makes us feel kind of uncomfortable with the rest of the measure. If you don't sustain it, let it fade it a little bit, yeah? And remember, he played it most likely with something resembling a Baroque bow, yeah? So you wouldn't be able to sustain it anyway, yeah? So just let the sound kind of go, let it stay very lively, and then continue. Da, da, dee, da, dee, ram, ba. Yeah? Okay, good. That was nice. Now this one also. If we sustain, it sounds great, but it puts us in an awkward place rhythmically. So start it very strong, but then let it go. Don't hold on to it. Yeah, and that gives us an easier time with that anyway. Yeah, and here. Why don't you try playing them with large circles? Right, so you're drawing a large circle. Beautiful, yeah. And you can also, all of this articulation is the same. You can use these circular movements above the string. So it's like an infinity loop, like this. And so you always come back. And that gives the short notes a lot of vibrancy. Would you buy yourself a little slower? Maybe you can try. Yeah, so just now we heard two types of releases. This one, where you came back, yeah? And it's very, very resonant, very lively, yeah? You don't even have to vibrate, it's so lively, yeah? And then in the other passage here, you stayed static, you didn't move back. You went like this, and that makes it sound a little flat. Now, if you were to retake and go right back, the release that creates gives a lot of resonance. So you can just try it. You do, and then, right. Yes, yes, yeah, and it's very lovely, yeah. And you can, however much we can do in the air between the notes, the better. Is it? So we stay nice and active. Much better, yeah. And then we have to speed it up. Yeah? So one more time from the Allegro. can work on that. You held on to a couple of notes like this. This one you held to on, and now this next passage is a bit of a dilemma. I always wondered how we are supposed to do these staccato dots that Mozart actually wrote when we're at the tip. This, what are you supposed to do? You can't do that with, no way. You know, we all play this. And do the best we can. Yeah? But there's a solution to this, believe it or not, and I didn't realize that until recently. You can do this. And then you've solved all problems. Yeah. So these staccatos, which apparently were important to him, enough important that he took his writing device and put dots there, you know. It wasn't as easy as now, where you can just erase. And so, yeah, he needed those dots, and so that's how you can do it. So you would play, and then this has a different character. It has a kind of more lyrical character. And then, yeah. So usually what I do with students is I have them learn both ways, and then when I tell them if they have an orchestra audition, we do this one because they're going to get their heads chopped off. But we're here in a different situation, so why don't you try this other way? Yeah. So you would. And then go to the trill and put some weight on it. Yeah? Okay, so from here. No, not the orchestra audition way, but my controversial way. Yeah? So you do it down and retake. That's the down that Leopold Mozart wrote about. You can do that down. Yes. Yeah, it's very different, right? Yeah, so try it again. Use more bow. And go to the balance point. And down. Yeah. Okay, and then Mozart doesn't write this slur in the exposition. Do you know that?
Yeah.
And so I don't do it. I've wondered why, and I think I know why. It's because of the fifth. Most likely, if I was playing it myself, I wouldn't write a slur. And then he writes a little wedge on this note. There's a wedge on it. What do you want to do with it? It gives you license to do something. So do something with it. Yeah? Don't just ignore it, because again, he took the time to write it. So he wanted something. Yeah? It can mean an infinite number of things. But at least I think it has a liveliness to it. Yeah? And maybe a more emphasized liveliness than if it's just a dot. Yeah? So you can, it doesn't matter. I was just interested in this fifth, which is very uncomfortable. Yeah? And it gives it this very humorous character. Yeah? If you bring out the wedge. Yeah? Try one more time. Yeah. Okay, and then we have dom da da da, right? We're from the beginning. Yeah. So dom da da. That's yours. you're imitating. Dum, da da dum, da da dum. Yeah? Don't go dum, da da dum. This is the one place I really don't think we should accent the first beat. So it's da da da. Okay, so we are taught from very small to play this, so. And then the next one, we're supposed to play more. And then, yeah, okay, wonderful, sounds great. You know, first prize, you won the job. But this in the score is piano in the cellos. So if you play that piano, then you get a completely different structure. So you've got tom, ta da. And then, and all of a sudden this thing becomes much livelier. Yeah? And what you then have is different voices, different operatic characters that you can imagine popping out of the woodwork, yeah? And so, again, why don't you give it a try? Yeah, so forte. Less. More. I don't know, we have, okay, I'll leave you with this last thing. This is painfully difficult, right? This, yeah, everybody's violinist's heart goes like this. Yeah, so what but it's not so bad, actually. And again, in Papa Leopold's book, he writes about groups of notes and how you can shape them with timing. So he likes to emphasize the first note of a group. And then by emphasis, he means that you should lengthen it. So you can actually play this. You are allowed to play it. You can lengthen the first note slightly, and then speed up the other three just slightly, ever so slightly, to make up for the lost time. And then you've got this shape. So here I decided there are groups of 8, so I'm going, and then groups of 4. Yeah, and try it. It's a lot easier to play that way. Yeah, and then you can make spaces between. Yeah, if it's easier for you, you can also make it a group of 8 and go. It's also okay. Right, and then you can, and then bring that suspension out. Yeah, okay, so if you're not used to it, but the basic idea is to take so you're playing groups of 4 essentially, so you can elongate. Yeah, and you can elongate them more or less. Like you can change how long they are emphasized, and that's how you can make these groupings much more lively than if you were to just play them very dutifully and. Yeah, it might be perfectly in tune and everything, but no one goes home and thought that was just. Yeah, it has to change your life. Yeah, and so in order to do that, you can emphasize notes, and you're allowed. It's written down. Yes. Yeah. So if you haven't read the book, read it. It's really helpful, and I always tell people that to read the book is actually very liberating, because I think we all grow up thinking Mozart is this composer that you can only play one way, and if you don't, you're just gonna not get the job, not win the competition, and not ever get into college. But that's a terrible reputation to have. And when you then read this book by his father with all these helpful guidelines, which help you actually get rid of all these inhibitions, because they make life so much easier, and it makes so much more sense. And it actually expands your imagination to include things that you would have never thought were possible. And then go ahead and offend somebody, yeah? Because that's how we can develop as musicians and get the music to live on another 200 years. Yeah. So, bravo.